It was a chilly autumn evening when Lily, a college student with a love for old, forgotten things, found herself exploring her grandmother's dusty attic. The house had been in the family for generations, and the attic was filled with antiques and relics from the past. Boxes of old photographs, worn-out furniture, and faded letters were all scattered about. But one item caught Lily's eye: a tall, ornate mirror covered with a heavy, old sheet. Curious, she pulled the sheet off, revealing a beautifully crafted mirror with an intricate wooden frame. The glass was slightly fogged, but it still reflected her image clearly. Lily smiled at the find, thinking it would look perfect in her apartment. As she studied her reflection, she noticed something strange. The reflection wasn't quite right. It was subtle at first, a slight delay in her movements, an odd flicker in the glass, but the longer she stared, the more unnerving it became. Her reflection seemed to be moving on its own, smiling when she wasn't, tilting its head ever so slightly to the side. Lily blinked and shook her head, trying to brush off the unease. She convinced herself it was just her imagination, a trick of the dim light. But when she turned to leave the attic, something made her stop in her tracks. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw her reflection still staring straight ahead, even though she had turned away. Her heart raced as she slowly faced the mirror again. Her reflection now had a sinister grin, and its eyes were darker, almost hollow. Panic set in as Lily reached out to touch the mirror, hoping to break the illusion. But the moment her fingers brushed the glass, it felt ice cold, and her reflection's hand shot up to match hers, pressing against the glass from the inside. Then, without warning, the reflection's hand pushed through the glass, grabbing Lily's wrist with an iron grip. She screamed and tried to pull away, but the reflection was too strong. It yanked her forward, pulling her into the mirror. The world spun as Lily was dragged through the glass, her surroundings blurring into a swirling vortex of darkness and light. She landed hard on the floor, but when she looked up, she was no longer in the attic. She was in a cold, dimly lit room, surrounded by mirrors on all sides. Each one reflected a different version of herself, each more twisted and grotesque than the last. Panic surged through her as she realized she was trapped. She ran from mirror to mirror. But no matter where she looked, there was no escape. The reflections laughed at her, mocking her fear, their voices echoing in the confined space. And then she saw her original reflection, standing in the center of the room, holding out a hand as if inviting her closer. But there was something wrong, something horribly wrong. The reflection's eyes were empty. Its smile was wide and unnatural, stretching too far across its face. Lily backed away, but the reflection moved closer, stepping out of the mirror and advancing toward her. She turned to run, but the other reflections blocked her path, their cold hands reaching out to grab her. "Don't be afraid," the reflection whispered, its voice hollow and echoing. "You'll be with us forever." With a final, desperate scream, Lily tried to fight them off, but the reflections were too many, too strong. They closed in on her, pulling her down, dragging her into the darkness. The next morning, Lily's grandmother found the mirror in the attic, its surface smooth and untouched. But there was no sign of Lily. The only trace of her was a faint, ghostly image trapped within the glass, forever reaching out for help that would never come. And the mirror, it still sits in the attic, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover its dark secret.